TCI is brought to you by Spendthrift Farm, home of Warriors Reward, a Grade 1 winning miler by Medaglia d'Oro.
Welcome back to TCI, your inside track to the Breeders' Cup. Alongside Joel Cunningham, I'm John Siegel. Joel, we had two Breeders' Cup winners in action over the weekend. Of course, I'm talking about Wise Dan and Groupie Doll. Let's talk about Groupie Doll first. You know, a lot of people wrote her off. They said she's lost her form. She's not any good anymore. Joel, I think that she proved them wrong in a big way over the weekend.
Well, she obviously lost the Gardenia, but that was around 2 turns. She got back to doing what she wants to do, John. Second off the layoff. She loves the synthetic track, but most of all, she loves returning that one-turn sprint configuration. Sets a track record here, but I'm not so sure the race was as good as that track record might indicate. I mean, she got a 99 Brisk number. I think maybe even third off the layoff at Keeneland. We'll learn what Groupie Doll is all about when she goes to that Win and You're In next month on her road back to Santa Anita in defense of that title.
Well, you mentioned she's going to run in a Win and You're In. Wise Dan, he did in the Woodbine, and he won an impressive style. Joel, he sets a track record as well. I mean, this horse just looks like he's on top of his game. Yeah, it was much more impressive than last year, I thought. We'll go now to the Twin Spires TV race replay, and we'll take a look at the stretch. What you don't see here is how keen he was. I mean, John Velasquez was skiing on him. He was so keen in the early stages of this race, but he held him together, got him out in the clear here, and you basically see him do it on his own courage here. John Velasquez looking around for the competition. This was not a good field that he beat. I thought last year's race was stronger. And basically, he wins on his own courage here, sets a track record. Now, that course was pretty quick, kind of like Groupie Doll. That track record, you might think, oh, what a dynamite race, and it was. But from a Brisk standpoint, he got a 103 Brisk number. Certainly, here's a horse that normally can, run in the upper around 108, 110 range. So Wise Dan has something left in the tank, seemingly going back to Keeneland, where he'll try to have a Win and You're In, like Groupie Doll, on his path back to the Breeders' Cup. Well, we see he's on top of his game. He's really in good form. But the question is, where does he rank on the TCI top 5? Let's go ahead and reveal the top 5 for the Breeders' Cup mile. And tell me, is he number 1?
He has to be number 1, John, as your defending champion. I mean, he's as good as ever right now, and he's a horse that doesn't matter if it's a 1-turn mile, 2 turns, if it's in New York, Kentucky, Woodbine, Santa, it doesn't matter. He's so tactical that he puts himself in such a good spot in most of these races. Now, he was a little overly keen in the Woodbine mile. However, normally that tactical speed, he's so classy. At John Velasquez, he can put him on the lead. He can take him way back, just depending on how the race shapes up. So Wise Dan, I think you have to have it number 1 just because he's going so well, and it doesn't really matter what the course condition is. The horse is just ultra classy. Now you have to start talking about him. It's interesting. Last year, Frankel, kind of came along as one of the best horses we've seen in a long time. Certainly one of the best milers on grass. Wise Dan's not going to get that same respect as Frankel, but now you have to start talking about him as maybe one of the top North American, at least, turf milers that we've seen in a long time.
Well, you mentioned Frankel. He was the European horse everybody was buzzing about. This is the division where we see a lot of them come over, and you can see it again this year. We have in at number 5, obviously, a horse that ran 3rd last year, but I'm not very familiar with these other horses in here. Go ahead and tell me about some of these European contenders.
Obviously, he's had a good year. He's the horse for course, has a lot of speed. Now, the thing about, obviously, you start looking at this year's, how it's shaping up in the mile. You have some fast horses. You have horses like Silver Max. You might have some other speed type horses in good form like King Creesa. Even the 3-year-old that Gary Contessa has, Rida Luke, has a lot of speed if they decide to go. So I'm not so sure if obviously he's going to have it his own way like he did last year. And we all know Wise Dan's tactical enough too. So when I look at these Europeans, John, I'm trying to find, we know they're very classy, but I'm trying to find some that have that late turn of foot, that explosion that could give Wise Dan a test. And when I look at Farr, the number 4 horse here, he might be the best European turf miler right now. He's a Godolphin horse, so we know that they can come over for the Breeders' Cup. He's a 4-year-old, and you want to talk about Frankel. He ran 2nd to Frankel several times last year. Right. He's classy from 8 to 10 furlongs, so I don't think he's quite ready for the 1.5-mile distance of the Breeders' Cup turf. They may bring him over for the mile. He had a little setback, and they're pointing for the Ascot meet with him. Be interesting to see if they run him at Ascot and then turn around in 3 weeks and bring him to the Breeders' Cup. But I think if they bring him for the mile, his class, you want to talk about a horse that ran dynamite in the Covenant. I mean, that Covenant performance earlier this year at Newberry was so dynamite. He blew horses away like Declaration of War. It was a dynamite performance. If he can get over his setback, I think he's a big-time contender if they bring him over. And you'll notice these class ratings. Brisk does not give speed figures for the European performances, but they do give class ratings. A 127 class rating, which what he got in Coventry earlier this year, that class rating is better than a lot of Golden Cova's class ratings were. So that gives you an idea how good he can be on his best day.
All right, and I see Don Approach here and there. I mean, that's a horse I think people are pretty familiar with, but tell me a little bit about him.
Yeah, Don Approach was that great 2-year-old last year. Darley got involved with this horse, or Godolphin, excuse me. And he's had a pretty good year this year, but he went off form. They found that, he had a lung infection last time out. And he's a horse that, at a mile has that class, John. And what's interesting is you'll see him here. He's with Tornado. And this was in the Sussex Stakes where he barely held off Tornado. Tornado came back and beat him in his next start. So these 2 3-year-old milers over there in Europe, I'm going to give Tornado the edge because he's in better form. He's a lightly raced horse, so he has room for improvement, John. And the good thing about Tornado is he's a late closer. And you want to talk about explosive turn of foot with that upside to maybe have an impact late in the race against Wise Dan, who's probably going to get clear in the stretch at some point. I think Tornado could be that horse, and they said that they're interested in him out. They may bring him over.
Well, it's interesting, like you said, Wise Dan, best horse in North America, but once again, we see a lot of European influence here in this top 5, so it'll be interesting to watch that. Thanks for that information. Yeah. We have some big races to talk about here in the States this weekend, including the Pennsylvania Derby, Joel. It's a $1 million race. We see Will Take Charge back in here. Right. But do you think there may be an upset alert to look for in here?
Yeah, Will Take Charge. I don't like him as much coming off of the Saratoga track that he obviously loved. Might have been a horse for course there, but he's a grinder, John. So I worry about him racing at night at Parx. Just not sure he's going to get up there. Moreno, the horse that he barely ran down in the Travers, might be the horse to beat because of his speed, John. If he gets loose there, nobody goes with him early. I think Moreno could be very dangerous, cutting back to 1 1/8 here. But I thought there was another interesting horse, and that's the Jerry Hollendorfer shipper. 3rd time off the layoff, and that's Fury Cap Corey. Here's a horse that was a runner-up in the cash call. He's by Tiz now, so he's bred to get better as the distances get further, certainly as he gets older, and he was good enough to be the runner-up last year to Violence in the cash call. So they're shipping him back over to run him on the dirt now. He's a very interesting horse for me. I could see him posting an upset in here.
All right, we also have a big race there at Parx for the fillies, and that's the Cotillion. Yeah. Joel, it's a Grade 1 race. We see Close Hatches in here. You got her 5th in the Filly and Mare Sprint on the TCI Top 5. You think she's got a big chance in here?
She's one of the 3-year-olds on that list that could really go either way. I mean, I think she's great at a middle distance, but what's Bill Mott going to do with her? They're running her here at 1 1/16. Last time when she won the Mother Goose, that was at 1 1/16, around 1 turn. So she's kind of a tweener. Are they going to point for the distaff at 1 1/8 against, where Bill Mott already has Royal Delta, right? Or are they going to maybe cut her back in the Filly and Mare Sprint if they want to run her in the Breeders' Cup at 7/8, where I think she can make an impact? I do think Close Hatches is your favorite in the Cotillion, is the class of the race, and I do think she can be a player in that Filly and Mare Sprint division.
Hey, thank you, JC, and thank you guys for watching. Hey, if you didn't get an email from us last week, you need to sign up. We're doing something different with our top 5s this year. Joel, we got so many top 5s to talk about, it's hard to fit them all in the show.
Man, we really do, and you're right. We can't fit them all in the show. We just launched the mile, but we are keeping up with all of them that we've previously launched. So if you want to kind of keep up with our top 5s, we've got a cool way of presenting it this year, John, and on top of that, we've done a lot of video interviews on some of the top contenders. Last week, we talked to Dick Mandela. What's he thinking about Beholder?
Right.
He wants to run the distaff, but he's well aware that the Filly and Mare Sprint is a possibility, so you can kind of get his thoughts there, as well as this week, Bob Baffert, talks about Game on Due. There's some very interesting things in there, so we're going to continue to interview these trainers, little video clips here and there within the top 5s, kind of gives you more information and an interactive way to check them out and keep up with them.
Hey, and it's easy to sign up. Just visit TripleCrownInsider.com. Look to your right-hand side. There's a sign-up button right there. As always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you come back next week. We'll recap these races, and we'll talk more about the top 5s.
Bet with TwinSpires.com and you can earn exclusive access to Kentucky Derby tickets. Wager at least $2,000 on races from Churchill Downs tracks or $4,000 total in September to earn VIP status. But only at TwinSpires.com.